Namaste, children. Welcome to the second lecture of the poem Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. I again wish and hope that you are spending quality time with your family and are safe. Now, children, as I told you in my last class, that this poem revolves around the idea of mood. I would just like to recapitulate things in a couple of minutes so that it refreshes what we have done in our previous lecture. And then we proceed to the leftover things in this poem, that is discussion on literary devices and some question answers. So, as I told you that this poem revolves around mood. Mr. Robert Frost, our poet, was having a bad day. And he was quite sad and was sitting under a hemlock tree. And it was winter season, it was snowing, the snow had accumulated everywhere, and it was quite chilly. The weather was also quite gloomy, So, as I told you, he was sitting under a hemlock tree, and a crow happened to be sitting on the branch of that same tree. And when the crow made some kind of movement on the branch of the hemlock tree, because of that movement, some snow which had accumulated on the branches of the tree fell on our poet, Mr. Frost. Now, the process of snow falling on Mr. Frost had a magical effect on him. Magical in which sense? Magical in the sense that he was completely transformed. His mood changed. He became much happier. He felt much better. So, thus, towards the end of the poem, in the last two lines, he says that this process, the process of the snow falling on me under a hemlock tree by means of a crow, changed my mood completely. And due to change of mood, I became much happier. I felt much better. And because of that, some part of the day was saved. Some part of the day was saved in the sense that the remaining day became better. I felt much better. Otherwise, my whole day would have been ruined as I had rued. As I had rued means as I was holding the day in regret. So, overall, and in my previous class, I had laid emphasis on the use of hemlock tree, crow, and winter, and all these things. In a couple of seconds, I would just throw some light on it again. Hemlock tree again is a representation of negativity. It's a poisonous tree. Crow again is also considered to be a negative, bird, and obviously, Mr. Robert Frost was also having a bad day. So everything altogether combined was negative in and around Mr. Frost that day. Now, as I told you that today we will be discussing literary devices. So you might have noticed that I have written some alphabets against each line. In the first paragraph, I have written A, B, A, B. In the second paragraph, I have written C, D, C, D. Now, what are these? This is nothing but this is the rhyme scheme which Mr. Frost has used in order to write this poem. Okay? It's the rhyme scheme. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. Now, let me tell you and justify this rhyme scheme. If you see the first line finishes with crow. The third line finishes with snow. Crow, snow, rhyming. Me, tree, rhyming. Head, pot rhyming, heart pot, sorry, mood root rhyming. So that is how a rhyme scheme is formed. So the rhyme scheme of this poem is A B C D C D. Now, as you can see that, and we have talked about it in our earlier explanations also, that this is not a very long poem. This is a short poem, simple words used, not much complications, okay? And that is the reason why there are not many literary devices in this poem. However, we have some of them, and I'll just talk about it right away. So apart from rhyme scheme, what we have is, we have alliteration. Now alliteration is again a very common and a very simple literary device which we have been studying in our past classes also. However, since we come across alliteration once again, I would like to explain how alliteration is used in this poem in this context. So if you can see that against alliteration, I have written one line, has given my heart, has given my heart. Here, the use of has and heart, HH. Here, occurrence of the same letter sound in a line. That's what alliteration is. If we have a same letter sound in the same line, if it occurs twice or maybe thrice, okay, that's alliteration. So H, an example of alliteration. All right, and then we have and saved some part. Here it would be easier for you to guess because you already know the definition now, and it's S and S. All right, same occurrence of the same letter sound in a line, that's alliteration. All right, now again, the next literary device used by Mr. Frost is assonance. Assonance, here against assonance I have written one line which appears in our poem, and the line is shook down on me, shook down on me. Here I would like to explain what assonance means. Assonance means the prominence of a vowel sound throughout the line. The prominence of a vowel sound throughout the line. Now all of us know vowels, yes, vowels A, E, I, O, U. Here we can see that the most prominent sound is of the vowel O. So here, shook down on me. So here, the O sound is repeating continuously and is prominent. So that is why it is assonance. The literary device is called assonance. Now, the third one we have is enjambment. Enjambment, here you see that I haven't written any explanation in front, any example in front of it, and I would tell you the reason why I have not written an example in front of it. Because this poem, I would like to draw your attention again to the poem. The poem Dust of Snow by Robert Frost is in totality an example of enjambment. Now I move on to the definition. Enjambment means when the same sentences continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation marks. Okay? If you look at the poem and if you just forget about the hyphens which I have placed after each line in order to show you the rhyme scheme, you would find that in the complete poem there are no punctuation marks used whatsoever except for a full stop at the end after the word rude, R-U-E-D, full stop. Alright? So this poem, complete poem, is written without any punctuation marks whatsoever. Okay? When line after line appears in a given set without any punctuation marks, then it falls under the category of enjambment. That literary device is known as enjambment. Alright, so I reiterate and once again I give you a brief recap of the things that we have discussed as far as the literary devices are considered. Okay, the first one is the rhyme scheme, which goes A B C D C D. The second is the alliteration. Alliteration, again, I would like to tell you, is the occurrence of the same letter sound in a line. Here, in the first line, it happens to be letter H, and in the second example, it happens to be the letter or the alphabet S. Assonance. Assonance means prominence of a vowel sound throughout the line. You know, throughout the line, when a vowel sound becomes very prominent, then it falls under the category of assonance. And here in this example, we see that the O sound, which also happens to be a vowel, is very prominent. And enjambment. Enjambment, as I told you, when the sentences continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation marks, no punctuations whatsoever in this poem, then it is an example of enjambment. So these are the most prominent three literary devices, not including the rhyme scheme. I'm talking about alliteration, assonance, and enjambment, which are used in this poem by Mr. Frost. Alright. Now, as I told you that we will be discussing some questions also. So here I have a few questions for you which I will be discussing. Here it goes. Okay. So, question number 1 says, what is a dust of snow? What does the poet say has changed his mood? How has the poet's mood changed? So 3 questions, 3 in one kind of a question. We'll be taking it one by one. Okay. So coming to the first part, dust of snow refers to the tiny particles of snow. The particles are so small that the poet referred to them as dust. And moving on to the second part, which says, what does the poet say has changed his mood? The poet was in an awful mood when particles of snow had fallen on him. Alright? And how has the poet's mood changed? This changed the poet's frame of mind instantly, and his day got a lot better. Alright? So again, basically the same explanation appears to you in the form of question and answers, which have been taken during the explanation part also. I read it out to you in a complete manner. Dust of snow refers to the tiny particles of snow. The particles are so small that the poet referred to them as dust. The poet was in an awful mood when particles of snow had fallen on him. This changed the poet's frame of mind instantly, and his day got a lot better. Alright, so this is what the first question tries to express. Now, moving on to question number 2. How does Frost present nature in this poem? Alright, how does Frost present nature in this poem? What The following questions may help you to think of an answer. Okay. What are the birds that are usually named in poems? Do you think a crow is often mentioned in poems? What images come to your mind when you think of a crow? Okay. So first of all, I'd like to take the main part of the question, in which the question says, "How does Frost present nature in this poem?" Now, Frost presents nature in a very different kind of a way. Generally, the poets don't use such kind of characters in their poem as Mr. Frost has used. The crow, the hemlock tree, uh, winter, snow, all connected in a negative manner, basically. You know, there isn't a positivity in these characters. However, I would like to say that the reaction caused by these negative characters on Mr. Frost was very positive. So, as in my previous lecture also we had discussed that it was kind of an ironical situation. In an ironic way, Mr. Frost has used all his characters because they are considered to be carriers of negativity. However, these carriers of negativity brought positivity in Mr. Frost. So, this is how Mr. Frost has represented nature in his poem. The other part of question says, birds like sparrows, nightingales and peacocks are more than often named in the poems. Unlike these birds, crows are often seen as the indicators of doom and fear. They are often used for negative references. Okay, so when you think of a crow, so as I told you, that crow is a negative character, and uh, the same way a hemlock tree is also negative in nature because it is a poisonous tree. So that is how Mr. Frost has used crow and hemlock tree in his poem. Okay. Now, uh, that was about the usage of crow and hemlock tree in his poem. So basically, these are some of the major, scenarios and major question and answers which you will come across in this poem, and I would request you to, you know, go to Google, log into, or just type in "Dust of Snow, Grade 10" by Robert Frost, and you would get more literature to read and understand about this poem. The basic idea of the poem, the important literary devices, and the important or the most prominent questions are already discussed with you. I hope I've made things clear to you, and that's it from my side. Thank you so much, and you have a blessed day. Thank you.